Jerry, what's it like for you watching the change in the players as they become, Marshall and I were talking about this earlier with Charles Barkley, more self-absorbed, more focused on themselves, the changes in their attitudes towards the game that you love so much?
Well, I think it's easy for people to sit back and criticize, but one of the things, time doesn't stand still, Suzy. The advent of the game, the three-point shot has changed everything. I think the loosest of standards at one time that would not be acceptable today in terms of, the carrying the ball, the walking that goes on, the violations of the rules. And again, this is a really tough game to officiate because of the size, skill, and the quickness of the game. But my goodness, I just see walking all over the place. It's just amazing to me. It's something that they tolerate now that wouldn't be tolerated before. And I think it's the advent of the Euro step, which many times is not 3 steps, about 4 steps. It's simply impossible to change directions 90 degrees or 100 degrees unless you carry the ball. But I think we better get used to it. It's part of the culture now, and it's about entertainment and allowing the players the biggest stage they can to show off their ball handling ability, some of the incredible things they do physically. So the game is changing, but I think the biggest change has been the three-point shot. At one time, coaches, there are a lot of different coaching styles. Some people more protective of controlling the game, number of shots taken, a lot of times because of lack of physical equipment on their team, lack of players that didn't have this great skill, so they tried to mold them into some kind of players. But today, my goodness, you don't see a lot of teams score less than 100 points today in any given game.
Jerry, I just and I'll ask you this question because I don't know how you're supposed to do it. How do you play defense now in the NBA? Is it like you just not? Because it's hard. I mean, everything's a foul in today's game.
Well, it's become more difficult, and as I say, over the years, people come to the game to see some of the. We have some unbelievable athletes in this year, and I heard you talking about LeBron James. Now, I want you to think of what this guy's accomplished for so many years. Physically, he's just been so dominant his whole career. Now, as he's gotten older, I think he's gotten to be a better basketball player. I really do. He just doesn't always rely on his ability to go into the basket, use his size and his cleverness to bump people off and make shots. He really can shoot the ball now. And I think that's been the reason he's been able to survive, along with this unbelievably gifted mind that he has. And it's become a profession now. And today, the amount of money that the kids can make today, don't you think for a second that they don't want to put themselves in a position in life to be able to walk away from the game and say, oh, I can start a career, a new life, based upon the fact that I don't have to rush out and get a job to try to support myself. So you have to give it to the kids. And as I say, the NBA is progressive and obviously things that fans like to see. Some of them are really spectacular. You go back and look at him, you say, oh, my gosh, the guy walked about 6 steps doing it. And but again, they used to be so strict with the rules, but I think it's a sign of the times. I mean, there were a lot of rules that were strict then, not just applying to basketball, but life in general. And we do not have those rules today, and they're becoming a lot less strict on a lot of things that people do in their regular lives, much less in sports. And we just got through the Super Bowl. My goodness, if you watch, passes being thrown, how subjective it is for pass interference. My goodness. And if the wrong time of the game, early in the game, they won't call them. Late in the game, they will not call them unless the offensive team has it. And I just see a complete difference in all sports. Hockey, I don't know. I think it's one of the most fun games in person to see. I do not know some of the penalties they're calling. I watched hockey for years when I was a player. I used to see all the home games. I loved hockey. But as I say, certainly the rules have been restricted, but also to allow these players who can do so many remarkable things, and it's pretty to watch. But in the process, it might not be legal at one time in the league.
Hey, Jerry, question, and I don't know this about the rules of basketball. Can an offensive guy get called for flopping? Is it an actual foul? Like, is it? Like, will they call?
As I say, there's a few people in this league that are really clever, and the officials today. Every time you hear a guy drive, if you just listen, if you're listening on the air, guy always screams before he even shoots the ball.
Yeah.
So he's hoping to draw the attention of officials. They do listen, and that to me is go to acting school sometimes, and you'll do better. But again, this game has completely changed. I watched a game last night, which I watch a game every night or some game, and watching the Knicks and the Nets last night. The Knicks had another insurmountable lead, and imagine to get some way, somehow, to lose a game. They've lost a bunch of games where they've been in 20 points ahead and lose it in the last quarter, and it's hard to believe, as well coached as they are. But it also shows you that players who keep playing and putting more pressure, and it usually applies on both ends of the court. More aggressive defensive play, which forces quicker shots, bad shots. You miss them. These leads can evaporate really quickly in the league, and I think that's why people don't leave the games anymore, because teams can come back, and particularly if they work at it.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.